theory was an attempt back in the late 1960s to explain what I thought is it is a Cress theory of color confrontation and racism, white supremacy. An attempt to, as a psychiatrist, as a black psychiatrist, to understand, well, what exactly is this thing that we call racism, white supremacy? Looking at why do white people behave in the way that they do. You see, in concluding that it has to do, number one, with their minority status on the planet, their genetic recessive status, in that they could experience genetic annihilation, in that the overwhelming majority of people on the planet are black, brown, red, and yellow, and whites constitute fewer than 1/10 of the people on the planet.
Right. So, kind of take this in pieces and go with that. So, first of all, let's make sure we understand what racism is. Right. So, from your understanding, Pat, what is racism?
So, are we breaking down what she's saying, or are we just giving our own opinions?
Because we breaking down what she's saying, but adding our opinions in it as well.
Okay. Because from what she's saying that racism, my interpretation of what she's saying, right? That's fair, right? I can say that, right?
Yeah.
All right. My interpretation of what she's saying is that because white people are so few in number, compared to the rest of the world's population, they feel a need to protect themselves when they come in contact with other groups, and to protect themselves, their resources, their culture, and their genetic viability, the continuation of their genetic line. Right. And that manifests itself in confrontations that amount to hoarding power, hoarding resources, and establishing dominance over all other social groups. Is that fair?
That's fair. That's fair. So I would add, as far as our own opinions and what we already know, not just opinions, but information that we already know. So I would more so go with Dr. Claude Anderson's definition mixed with what Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and Neely Fuller were talking about. So race being a competition between groups of people for land, power, resources, and wealth. And then once you grab the land, power, resources, and wealth, the white supremacy and the white domination would come in to maintain that land, power, resources, and wealth. Because you're not going to obtain all this stuff just to lose it. So you're going to put some kind of mechanism in place to make sure that you can retain that power. You can remain dominant. You're not going to allow a group that you just dominated regain power and become superior to you. So yeah, they're a small portion of the groups of people or the races of people. The white population is small, like say 1/10, 10%, but through their savage behaviors and their terroristic behaviors, they've been able to dominate most of the world.
I would agree with that personally. If I'm injecting my personal opinion, and I would say, yeah, the establishment and maintenance of dominance and influence is how I would define it. If I were to simplify it, one group being superior in status to another group or all of the other groups would be like racism in action. And then here I feel like it's necessary to make the distinction between the practice of racism and the racist ideology, because those are two different things to me.
Yes. Yeah. Because I say it different. I always ask people, what's more racist to you? What a person does or what a person says? Because that's a big difference. Because I can say what I want to say, but if I have no ability to act on what I'm saying, I don't really have no power. But if I can say what I want to say and act on it and continue to create things to act on, I have power.
Right. So right. So the practice of racism, the systems of racism are more significant and impactful than the ideology of the races. But you know, we frequently find ourselves battling the ideology instead of focusing in on the tangible real world effects.
Right, right. But also understanding that the ideology helps create the culture in the individuals, but it's the actions. At
Right.
the end of the day, it's the actions. Because if I can't reinforce none of what I'm saying, it don't matter.
Well, because we talk about apathy all the time, right? Somebody doesn't necessarily have to be racist to benefit from and support the racist system.
Right,
Like ideologically, they don't have to believe it themselves. They might think everybody's equal, but that
right,
doesn't mean that they're going to give up the benefits that they have under the system that allows them to have those benefits because of their race.
right, right. All right. So let's continue.
One of the things that we find that is happening now is there's this constant countdown. You see it on the news all the time. So when America's a majority minority nation, so there's still this countdown happening in terms of when white folks will be in the minority.
They will be a majority minority, which is nonsensical. There will be a white minority. If the non-white, if black, brown, red, and yellow people are here, they will be the majority and whites will be the minority. You see, and it's a illogical statement to talk about a majority minority. I mean, which is like white supremacy. I still have to put myself on top. I have to pose that I am genetically superior to compensate. I say it's a compensation for a genetic recessive status. Well, I think I was the first person to talk about white genetics.
So I want to say there, I love the tone of it, but I disagree with what she said.
Elaborate.
So it's not nonsensical to say that something is the majority minority. It's a very fancy, overly whatever way of saying that. Yeah, like they're saying that there will be a minority group in terms of raw numbers, but they're still going to be the largest group. So if you add everybody up in America, then the total of everybody else is going to be more than white people. But the total of each of those individual groups is still not going to be larger than the individual total of white people.
Right.
So
right now,
go ahead.
I do understand that, but in my opinion, for her coming from the idea, because remember, we're giving a group of people information who is hearing this for the first time, who's understanding psychologically what has happened to us for probably the first time. So it is nonsensical in the physical raw sense of you all are not the total majority of the world. And like you said, if you add everybody together, you're not the total majority. So it's nonsensical in that sense, but I get what you're saying. It makes sense in a sense of this is who we are. This is the position that we've gained. And if you look at other groups, if you break each group down and pit white people against each other group, as of right now, white people still have the raw numbers more than anybody else. But on the world scale, and I think that's what she's talking about on the worldwide scale.
Well, I'm not sure that that's what she's talking about, though. Might have to run it back. Can we run it back?
Let's run it back.
Will be the majority and white. They will be a majority minority.
We find that is happening now is there's this constant countdown. You see it on the news all the time. So when America's a majority minority nation, so there's still this countdown happening in terms of when white folks will be in the minority.
They will be a majority minority, which is nonsensical.
Okay, so if you just talking about on American scale, but she's also talking about something futuristic. So she's saying they will be a majority minority. So she's talking about in the time where the Hispanic, especially Hispanic group passes the white group as far as births.
Well, and so from a propagandist standpoint, and what you said, I can feel that in terms of exposing this information to people at a time period where they weren't exposed to anything like it before. The only reason, and so if this was 20, 30 years ago, I wouldn't be saying this. But nowadays, it's kind of like, all right, it's time for us to move into reality. You know what I'm saying? So,
I'm with you. I'm for with you on moving past the talking points and moving toward action.
right.